It was 1 year ago this week that we got the premiere of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and there were a lot of hot books in the market. So in this video, we're going to take a look back at some of those books and ask the question, where are they now? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video with Swaggle. And in this video, we're going to take a look back at the Falcon and Winter Soldier books that got hot during the course of that show. Because can you believe it? It's been a year ago this week that we got the premiere of the first episode. So I thought it would be fitting to do a video where we look back, see where the values of some of those books were at the time, and then kind of look at them right now and kind of see if we can make a determination of, if some of these books might still be worth picking up for the future. But before I get into the video, if you guys could drop me a like or comment or subscribe if you're enjoying the content, help support the channel, doing those things, I would appreciate it. But let us get into the video here today, and a little bit of a preface, of course. I'm just kind of using, what is generally small sample sizes. I went up to GPA. I went back to my old videos to kind of do some value tracking. And so these are sort of the numbers that I roughly came up with, but they're general averages. And I'm not going to do every book that, we got during the show, but I do have a lot of good ones to talk about. And the first one I think that we should definitely talk about is this one right here, Captain America number 117 from 1969. And what is the significance of this? Well, of course, this is the first appearance of Falcon, otherwise known as Sam Wilson. Now, in Falcon and Winter Soldier, obviously, we got Falcon and we got Bucky being kind of the two leads of the show. And this book right here was definitely a book that, it took some time, but it definitely gained in value throughout the course of the week. So I pulled up one example here, the CGC 7.0. That was kind of the grade that had, sort of the largest sample size to get a sense of the values. Back then, the CGC 7.0 was selling around the $1,100 range. Now it sells around the $810 range. So there's been a little bit of a 26% correction for this book at that particular grade. Average raws back at the time in the height of the show were selling for $400. Now you can kind of go onto eBay and probably find one around the $275 to $310 range. This is just sort of approximate values of what you could find out there on eBay. So this book right here has had a kind of a healthy correction. 26% really to me isn't a crash like we've seen with some of the other books. Like even when I did my video with WandaVision, we talk about like West Coast Avengers 45 and how that one dropped like 60%. So 20% as a pullback seems okay to me, especially since, this is a book that came out essentially at the height of the market. We're talking, March, April, May, June. And this is still a great book to have in your collection. I mean, we're definitely going to be getting more Captain America, Sam Wilson in the future. Sam Wilson is going to be a character that's probably going to be around for a long time. And this is definitely a classic Silver Age book. All right, let's go on now to the next book here. And the next book is, of course, related to this one. And that one, of course, is Captain America number 25 from 2014. And what is the significance of this? Well, this is when Sam Wilson takes up the mantle of Captain America. So we got that big moment in Falcon and Winter Soldier. It wasn't until the last episode where Sam Wilson actually donned the red, white, and blue suit. At the time of, the height of this book, the CGC 9.8s were selling around that $415 level. Now you can find them around the $150 level, which makes that a 73% correction for this book. Average raws at the time, especially during that final episode, were selling around the $115 level. Now you can find them on eBay around the $50 price range if you're looking for, a near mint copy. And this one is one of those books where it's really a good case study where with a book like this, which is a modern book that kind of is like the first appearance of a character, as whatever is the new version of that character compared to 117, which is the original Silver Age first appearance of the character. And what you typically see is that, both books will always move in tandem. When and if we get Captain America 4 and we see Sam Wilson, he will definitely be having the Captain America suit again, and this book will certainly go up in value, as will 117. But this one is always going to be more volatile because there's going to be more copies in circulation. So, the supply and demand effect. So this is one of those books where, maybe if you want it, if you're really a fan of this version of the character, this might still be worth picking up. There will probably be, another spike for this book at some point in the future. But if you're trying to spec on this thing, this is more of a strike when the iron is hot. So you're going to need to sell it at the right time. Whereas the Silver Age Cap 117 is probably going to be a book that always, continues to go up in value over the long term. All right, let's go on now to the third book here. And the third book is obviously for the other star of the show. And this one, of course, is Captain America number 6 from 2005. And what is the significance of this? Well, this of course is the first full appearance of the Winter Soldier. Now, this particular book also had a variant cover, which I'm mostly highlighting on the slide in front of you. This would also be, the Winter Soldier's first cover appearance if you have this variant. And this is the book that I want to talk about because it's probably the one that, has always been slightly more valued. Back then, CGC 9.8s at the height of the show were selling around the $950 range. Now they sell around the $460 range. So roughly a 50% correction for this book. Average raws $250. Now you can find some on eBay around the $175 level. So this one right here is, it's always been a little bit of a pricey book, especially in these last few years as Winter Soldier has become kind of, the big character that we know him to be. But looking at those values of where they were and where they are now, this definitely feels like a pretty good buying opportunity. I would almost put more stock into this book right here than Captain America 25, simply due to the fact that I think Cap 117 is like a better book to own for the Falcon character. Whereas this book here, like, what are the chances you're going to be able to get a Captain America Comics number 1 first appearance of Bucky? So this seems to be the book you would want to get. We'll probably get more Winter Soldier in the future. And this book right here, being that it's his first kind of appearance as this character, feels like a good book to have, in your collection regardless. I mean, the cover is great. I love Ed Brubaker, and this would definitely be something that would look nice in a slab. And speaking of slabs, let's take a moment to talk about the sponsor of this video, MySlabs.com. Now, for those who don't know, MySlabs.com is an online marketplace that specializes in graded collectibles. As you can see right there on your screen, 1% fee for sellers. So sellers get to make better deals with buyers, and everyone gets to keep more money in their pockets. Not only that, they also now do raw comic book sales as well, and raw comic book sales only charge 3% fees for those sellers. So MySlabs.com, a great marketplace. I'm going to play this little commercial for you guys, and I will see you on the other end.
Tired of paying 10%, 15% or more to sell your cards, comics, and digital collectibles? How does 1% sound? Too good to be true? Well, not anymore. MySlabs.com is the web's premier user-driven marketplace for buying and selling slabbed cards, sealed wax, and now slabbed comics and digital collectibles. So the next time you're forced to pay 10% or more to sell something from your collection, head over to MySlabs.com and join the 1% revolution.
Definitely go check out MySlabs.com and see if it's a marketplace for you. They got a lot of great books on there, and maybe they have a book like this one right here, which is the next book we have to talk about for Falcon and Winter Soldier, Captain America number 323 from 1986. First appearance of John Walker as Super Patriot. Now, I'm sure you guys are well aware of this book. This was one of those books that absolutely got hot. Coming off the heels of Falcon and Winter Soldier, we had Wyatt Russell playing the character John Walker. And at the time of, his first episode where he premiered, this book was selling at the CGC 9.8 range around that $750 price point. Now, when you go out into, certain markets looking for this thing, you could probably find it selling around the $370 level. So another book that has sort of had that 50% correction. Average raw at the time was selling at the $125 mark. Now you can probably find them around the $50 price range. So this is definitely a book like some of the other ones we've already talked about that has had a pretty decent correction. But with all that said, I actually still do think that this is probably a decent book to have. Maybe it's not the main book you would want for John Walker. We're going to talk about that book up next. But this is still a decent key, and it definitely feels like, the Wyatt Russell version of the character is going to be playing a big role in the MCU in the future. And let's talk about it right now. Captain America number 354 from 1989. And what is the significance of this? Well, of course, this is the first appearance of U.S. Agent, or when John Walker takes up the mantle of U.S. Agent. Now, at the end of Falcon and Winter Soldier, we got that reveal with Julia Dreyfus's character, where she revealed John Walker to be the U.S. Agent. And at the time in which we got that sort of moment, CGC 9.8s were selling around the $1,200 range. Now, I think the last sale was around $680. Now, this is a book that actually is really difficult to get in 9.8 grades. I mean, the last sale was $680, but that's not a number that you're going to easily be able to find. So the CGC 9.8 is definitely one that, even though it had a 45% correction, is still going to command a pretty high premium dollar amount. But when we look at the average raws, this was a book that actually didn't quite have the same explosion, even with the reveal at the end of the season. I remember specifically that there were raws that you could find for this thing around the $70 price point. Now, when you go into, eBay or MySlabs or wherever you want to find this book, you can maybe find it anywhere from on the low to $25 to maybe on the high to $50. So, generally around that $30 to $40 price point, I think it's possible to find this book. And for me, I think that this is definitely the book that you would want to have if you are a fan of the Wyatt Russell version of the character. I still think that we're going to be getting a lot of US Agent in the future. And even though he's kind of a villain, I think that eventually he might have kind of a nice little arc for himself. All right, let's go on now to the next book here. The next book we have to talk about is kind of a twofer, kind of like the last slide. And this one is really interesting. But this one is Captain America number 168 from 1973. And what is the significance of this? Well, this is the first appearance of Baron Helmut Zemo, except he was known as Phoenix in this book. Now, we can also talk about Captain America 275, another book that got hot, and that is actually going to be the first costume appearance of Baron Zemo. Now, I only pulled up the numbers for 168 because truthfully, the Captain America 275 book has really fallen off as far as its values are concerned. So let's talk about 168 for now. This is not a book that is slabbed often, so there's very few data points to analyze for this thing. But, back at that time, CGC 9.6 selling around the $1,200 range. Now, last couple sales, I think we're hovering around that $564 range. So 65% correction for this book. Average raws at the time were selling around that $70 price point. Now they kind of hover around the $40 price range or so. But this is definitely a book that feels a little more volatile than some of the other ones we talked about previously. I personally think that Baron Helmut Zemo is going to still play a big role in the MCU. Currently, I think he's in a Wakandan prison, and hey, there's nothing to suggest that we won't see him maybe in Black Panther 2, or maybe we're going to see him in, the Wakanda show. And of course, there's still the rumors that we might be getting him in the Thunderbolts. So I still think that this is a good book to get your hands on, but I'm just not sure if the market necessarily agrees with this one. He's on the cover, but not in his, purple hood. That definitely hurts this book. But I do still think it's a great key to have. I still think Zemo has a bright future ahead of us in the MCU. All right, let's go on now to the next book here. And the next book we got to talk about is Captain America number 312 from 1985. And what is the significance of this? Well, this, of course, is the first appearance of Flag Smasher, otherwise known as Carl Montague. Now, if Falcon and Winter Soldier were to have a White Vision equivalent of a book that crashed respectively, this would probably be the book that I would point to the most. Of course, in Falcon and Winter Soldier, we had Carly Montague, who was the, kind of gender swap version of the Flag Smasher. They kind of revamped the whole thing to make the Flag Smasher an organization. And this was a book that definitely was hot at the time of the show. But as you can see from the numbers here, CGC 9.6 at that point was selling around the $250 range. Now you can find one around the $75 range, 70% correction. Average raws at that time were at that 40, pushing even 50 at times. Now you can find some on, eBay for 15. So definitely a book that has really fallen off. So this book right here, definitely doesn't seem like one that has too much of a future, but one that, if you missed the boat at the time of Falcon and Winter Soldier and you always wanted it in your collection, now might be a good time to, add this little minor key. All right, moving on now to the next book is this one right here, Truth, Red, White, and Black, number 1 from 2003. First appearance of Isaiah Bradley. Of course, in Falcon and Winter Soldier, Isaiah Bradley had a big role in the show. CGC 9.8s at that time were selling around the $580 range. Now they sell around the $250 range. So another pretty sizable drop off, 65%. Average raws at the time were selling around the $75 to $100 range. Now we see them selling around $40. And this is a book right here that, to me, again, sort of like some of the other characters we talked about, I'm not really sure how much Isaiah Bradley is going to be playing a role in the future. I mean, it's certainly possible they could bring Isaiah Bradley back into the MCU if they want to do a storyline with Patriot. I mean, certainly they planted the seeds for Patriot of the Young Avengers, so we might see Isaiah Bradley again, but I'm not really sure that we're going to have a moment that really excites the marketplace and makes everyone want to get this book. Still kind of a cool book, even outside of MCU spec, but one that, I don't necessarily think is going to reach those former highs. All right, let's move on out to the next book here. And the next book is Tales of Suspense, number 75 from 1966. And what is the significance of this? Well, there's a few things here. One, it's the first appearance of Sharon Carter. Two, it's the first appearance of Batroc the Leaper. And three, it's the first cameo appearance of Peggy Carter. Now, this book is really interesting because of all of the books we talked about, this is actually one of those books, at least in the CGC grades that I looked at, that has actually gone up in value since the time in which we got it in Falcon and Winter Soldier. So I pulled up the CGC 8.0 at the time in which Falcon and Winter Soldier was going on. There was a sale around the $330 range. Now, last sale for this book at that grade level was $425. So it actually went up 30% in value. But those two sales are literally the one sale that happened at that time and the one sale that recently happened. So hard to get a sense of how this book is really valued in the market, but still kind of a minor key. Average raws, couldn't really find the data on that one, but average raw now, if you were to go, onto eBay or something, you could generally find this book around the $100 price point. Typically speaking, because it's a Tales of Suspense Silver Age book and it has these three sort of first appearances in it, I do think it is a nice little minor key. As far as like how big of a future it has for itself, kind of hard to say. Now, the cameo appearance of Peggy Carter could be a big one for this book. If we really start to see Peggy Carter, have a significant role in the MCU, this could be a book that definitely has a bright future in front of it. All right, and with that said, this takes us to the last book we're going to be talking about today, and that is Strange Tales number 159 from 1967. And what is the significance of this? Well, this, of course, is the first appearance of Contessa Fontaine. I'm not going to say the whole name. You guys know the character, played by Julia Dreyfus. She made her huge cameo appearance in Falcon and Winter Soldier, and this book absolutely blew up in the market. Again, another book that had a lower census with the CGCs. So I picked out the CGC 6.5. Back then, sold around the $475 range. Now, last couple sales were around the $265 range. So a 55% correction for this book. Average raws at the time, especially coming off her initial reveal, were selling around that $200 price point. Now, when you go onto eBay, you can find it around the $100 range or so. And this is an interesting book. This was one that really took the market by storm, simply due to the fact that her cameo was so surprising, so stunning. And I don't know if people were ready to capitalize on the sales for this book. I mean, there must have only been a handful on eBay at this particular time. This was one that, really the market just had to chase in a fervor and really exploded for that reason. And I think over the course of the last year, people have sent more books into CGC, people have found their books, in their collections. So the market has been flooded with that inventory. And that's one of the reasons that this book has corrected so much. But when I think about the Contessa character, I mean, they've definitely utilized her now in multiple properties. I mean, it definitely feels like she's putting together the Thunderbolts team, and it definitely feels like she's going to be playing a big kind of Nick Fury-esque role. Still feels like a good key to get your hands on. I mean, it's a nice little Silver Age book, not too bad of a cover, and a cool character that could have a major impact in the MCU in years to come. Well, that is all I have for this video. That was me taking a look back at the Falcon and Winter Soldier books. Let me know what you guys think. Did you guys buy any of these books at the time when we got Falcon and Winter Soldier? Were there other spec books that you were going after in the market? I still think there's a lot of great books, that we talked about here today that might still be worth picking up and might have, bright futures ahead of them. Anyways, let me know what you guys think. Drop me a like, comment, subscribe if you're enjoying the content, and I will see you in the next video.